Oh, hi there. I'm just about to finish my first sail for this kayak, the stay sail. I just need to add some eyelets, but that will be done in a moment. So let me show you how I did it. My plan is to start with a head sail. From the measurements I made earlier, I had that leech, the distance from the top of the sail to the bottom of the sail against the boom is 1 meter and 4 centimeters. That's the leech. The foot of the sail, that's the distance from the front of the mast to the top of the furler. That's 92 centimeters. So the foot is 92 centimeter. And as this is a triangle, it's not necessary to actually measure this distance, but I measured it anyway, and it's 137 centimeters. And that's the luff of the sail. To reduce the flutter of the sail, this leech needs to be hollow. There needs to be an intake done on this. The recommendation is to do that 1/3 up from the foot. So about here should be the deepest intake. And the intake should be about 1 to 3% of the length of the leech. That's in my case something between 1 and 3 millimeters on a scale 1 to 100. So something looking like this. But I also need to extend this part of the cloth in order to have something to sew into. And that adds 3 centimeters. That would look something like this. What more? The foot of the sail also needs to be extended a bit downwards. About 1.5 to 3% of the foot. So in my case about just short of 3 centimeters and not less than 1.5 centimeters. Something looking like this, and this should be just a nice bend. Also here I need to allow for the seam. I will extend this cloth. Now the luff. In an unstayed mast you will actually shorten the luff in order to compensate for sag in the stay. But I also need to consider the chamber that I want to introduce. By aligning the cloth so that the threads are pulling cloth in from the luff. By aligning the cloth so that the threads are in this direction, aligned with the leech of the sail, and then it doesn't get stretched so much in this end, but the front of the sail, it's actually almost 45 degrees angle here, so thereby this part of the cloth will be stretchable. At 1/3 of the sail up and 1/3 of the sail from the bottom, I will use a mathematical formula for a chord to calculate the necessary addition to the sail. This extra cloth will be pulled into the luff, creating the chamber. I have this distance, that's the distance from the back end of the sail to the front end of the sail. And for an 8% chamber, I need to extend this length of the cloth, about 0.5 centimeters. And as this distance is longer, 8% chamber depth will be created by extending this 1 centimeter. And then I also need to have a seam allowance in the front of the sail. We also need to strengthen different parts of the sail, and I will do that by adding a piece of cloth to these 3 corners, or actually 2 pieces of cloth, about 10% up into the rest of the sail. Yeah, that's the plan. This is a straight edge. The threads are oriented like this. I will make this the back end of the sail, and I will start by just removing the thread from this cheap sunsail that I bought. I don't want to waste a lot of money buying real sails, as I'm not sure exactly how the sail will or should look like. Actually, the whole sail addition to the kayak is a experiment. Let's start lofting. And as I don't want to draw any nails into my floor, I will use tape instead. This will be the head of the sail, and the leech is 104. It's down here. And the foot 92. And then this distance should be 137. I'll have to adjust here. I continue to lay out the design on the floor. This is the deepest intake in the leech, 1/3 up from the foot. The hollowness is shaped with a bendable object, using some fitness products. The foot is shaped in a similar way, around the middle point of the foot. The luff is shaped to cope with the stay sag and cloth stretch into a hardly visible S shape. I cut the cloth to get the correct thread orientation, parallel to the leech and in a 45-degree angle to the luff. The panels are cut and fitted together, so they can be sewn together, shaping the chamber. I also cut and shaped corner patches from the scrap pieces. 3 patches for each corner. I start the sewing with putting the panels together. First slowly and then more confident. I sew 3 panels together. With the 3rd false seam, I make room for a total of 3 intakes, helping to shape the belly of the sail. The intakes are about 1.5% of the luff of the leech, diminishing to nothing at the belly point, about 40% in from the luff. In between, I check the shape against the lofting pattern. Using needles, I fold the foot seam before sewing it. The corner patches should be sewn on before I end the seam. The leech is marked onto the cloth using a pencil, and then I can cut it. I prepare corner patches for sewing and sew them on with some wrestling. The leech is just folded over and sewn as the cloth has a parallel orientation, hand feeding the machine in the thick areas of the corner. I draw the luff profile onto the sail and cut the luff end of the sail. Instead of tape, I use needles to hold the cloth in place. It's cheaper. First I hand feed machine again to avoid breaking the needle through the thick cloth. then stepping on it until I reach the glue corner and can put on those patches. I prepare for installing a band in the luff. This is needed to get enough strength to pull the mast in place. The luff also needs to be strong to present itself the best way to the wind. I cut the luff tabling with the same cloth orientation as the rest of the luff. If you just fold it over, the luff will get uneven when stretched. Now I sew on the first tabling seam of the luff. Then I install the band. Now I can sew on the tabling with the band inside. I finish the sewing by covering the top. I test 3 different kinds of glue to secure the eyelets. Cut holes in the cloth for the eyelets. And use the glue with the best strength after water bathing. It also turns out to be the only one that is clear. It is a glue for plastic that will make the connection with the eyelet strong. That was all for this time. Thank you for watching.